Welcome, friends! It is I, your LostScarf, and it's time for the Short Smite Beginner Guide to Medusa. That's right, the hunter is here who you don't want to look at in her face. Though you should, because you look at her else she's just going to shoot you as well. So, you're screwed either way. Medusa is a pretty fun but very complicated hunter in this game. It's going to take a little bit of learning to do her well, but hopefully this guide will give you enough information to get a good handle on her, though she is pretty slippery. As always, this is for beginners, not really for expert or advanced players, but there might be information here you find useful. But if you see there's anything you feel that needs to be elaborated on more, please say so in the comments so that the viewers have more they can learn from. As always, we're going to go over her abilities, her class and roles, items you should buy on her, tips and combos, and of course, conclusions just wrap everything up. So let's get going. Medusa's abilities. First up is her passive, Sidewinder. Now this is a very subtle passive. She gets no movement speed penalty when strafing, and half movement speed penalty when moving backward. This is really good for boxing and being very hard to hit. First ability, Viper Shot. Her next 3 basic attacks are poisoned and do damage over time. Also increases her attack speed during these 3 shots. Second ability, Acid Spray. This is a skill shot that turns into a cone after it hits an enemy. So if you hit a minion at the front of a minion line, it'll hit the rest of the minions, hopefully, and maybe even hit a god because of the wide cone. Third ability, Lacerate. This is a dash that roots the first god it hits. It also reduces the healing of the god if they hit them. It goes through his minions and does no damage to them though, so it's all about just going in for a kill or running away as a dash. And lastly is her ultimate, Petrify. This is a cone attack that winds up and then fires. If an enemy is looking at you, they are stunned. If they're looking away, they get slowed and they do take damage either way. And if you kill an enemy god with your ultimate, they're turned into a statue, which is very useful because you can bounce your acid spray off of it if you want, or use it for body blocking. Class and roles. So Medusa is a hunter, which means she's capable of dealing a lot of damage with basic attacks. At first she's kinda weak, but she becomes incredibly powerful later on, so you want to do a lot of farming. With Sidewinder you can juke a lot of enemy shots, Acid Spray is good for clear, Lacerate can help you kill or escape, and Viper Shot is great for kills if you get a good opportunity. And Petrify is useful alone or with team fights. Now for the role for beginners, that would be the ADC role, and that's you teamed up with their support as a duo lane. You'll be spending the laning phase farming up as much as you can. That's usually what a hunter does. Your goal is to outfarm the other team. You want to get the last hits and get a little bit more gold. You want to push the enemy to tower so they lose gold to tower. And you also want to try to kill the enemy duo. That last one's pretty hard to do. But if you and your support are coordinated enough, you can get kills to push ahead. But you have to be careful being pushing ahead because if you're too far up, you are open to ganks. In team fights, your focus is to land good team ults, so you can really cause a lot of trouble to the enemy team, and land basic attacks to just end people with death. Tips and combos. And Medusa has quite a few tips. First up has got to be learn how to move as Medusa. Because of her passive, she's a little more slippery than other gods, so you just got to learn how to do that, and if you do it, you'll play very well. Another is save Viper Shot for guaranteed hits. You don't want to waste those shots, obviously, so when you know you can get those hits, go for it. Next tip, try to acid spray minions and gods if possible. That's another straightforward tip, but it's important to just think about that. If you can get all the minions and a god, that's so much better. Now, the next one is Lacerate is useful for making Viper Shot easier or escaping. This is because when you lacerate someone, they stop for a moment, which allows you to land about 1 or 2 Viper Shots, or you can just use it for escaping. Next one is, the heal reduction on Lacerate can be very helpful in 1v1 fights with hunters. That's because hunters usually have lifesteal. That'd be very useful there. Now this next tip's a little complicated. That is doing your ult away from the enemy, and then looking at them at the last second. That way you waste the wind-up time on that so they don't know it's coming, and then you hit them with it, then you stun them so you can just kill them. And lastly, you can use statues for acid spray and body blocking, as I said earlier. Now for combos, there's really only one combo, and that is 1-3 basics. That is, you activate Viper Shot to get it ready, you dash over with Lacerate to stop and root a god, and then you shoot basic attacks at them. That's her only combo. On top of that would just be doing your ultimate, and then doing that. That's it. Purchases for Medusa. And what you want to buy from Medusa is power, penetration, lifesteal, crits, and attack speed. That's a normal build for a lot of hunters, but you want to focus a little bit more on power for Medusa because her power really helps her with her Viper Shots, so you can do a lot more damage with that. She's just a little more caster focused at first, and you give her attack speed so that she's a basic machine later on, and should be very deadly all game. As far as relics go, it's not a bad idea to get a defensive relic on top of your ultimate. That way you have 2 ways of being immune to anything that happens, so Purification or Sanctuary aren't a bad idea. But you can also get Sprint or Curse, which will help you with just landing your shots better, because you'll be able to speed up and do things, or you'll be able to have them slow down to let you do things. It's really up to you what you want to go for. In conclusion, Medusa is one of the more complicated hunters in the game, but if you master boxing with her passive and timing your abilities well, you can cause a lot of trouble for your opponents. That's just really how she is. She's just not the easiest hunter to learn, but if you learn how to play her, you'll just cause a lot of trouble and you'll be really good for your team. especially with all the teamfighting potential of her ultimate, and just her ability to lane kinda well thanks to her acid spray, and just being able to kill people with a little bit of help when it comes to Viper Shot. Now next up is gonna be Nausea. We're gonna skip Mercury because we already have a guide for him. It's still a pretty good guide. The build in that guide is not so great because that's from Season 1, but everything about just talking about Mercury is still useful for him to this day. That's usually what these guides are about, making the gods relevant and how you want to play them, but not really their builds, because builds do change depending on the seasons, but the gods rarely do, unless you get a complete change on their abilities. So there you go, that right there is the guide. It's not a bad idea to share this and all the other guides with your friends, that way they have a better understanding of more gods in this game. The better everyone is at the game, that means you have better opponents, better teammates, just better gameplay in general, and that's good for everybody. So there you go, that right there is the guide. I had fun making it, I hope you had fun watching it, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.